everyone. Hi.
Hi.
Checking in after lunch. I'm going to be presenting. I'm with Ohio Sea Grant, so I do education and outreach with marinas and boaters for the majority of my job. And I'm going to be presenting on a project that is there we go. Thank you. That is a result of funding through NOAA for a coastal storms small grant project that we did. So I'm going to go over our project, go over the methodology, and then get to the results and outreach portion of kind of what came out of this research. So as I mentioned, this was a NOAA Coastal Storms Program project. If you haven't heard of the Coastal Storms Program, they have funded a series of research and outreach and related projects across the country, and this past cycle has been focused on the Great Lakes. So they've done Gulf Coast projects, they've done projects in Hawaii, so we were really glad to have them recognize our freshwater lakes, our inland coastal states here, and so they funded several projects in the Great Lakes region. Our project was titled The Development of a Coastal Storms Preparation, Adaptation, and Response Tool. So this is directly related to that project. I also have to thank Ohio Sea Grant as they helped provide the match for that project. So why focus on coastal storms? Why of all the other issues? As some of you may have seen, the harmful algal bloom session has been jam-packed. And coming from Ohio and Lake Erie, there's a wealth of other issues that we have to focus on. Why coastal storms? Well, when you look nationally and you look historically, coastal storms are actually the most frequent natural disaster of the past several years. And so a lot of people think where they are in the nation, there's tornadoes, hurricanes, what have you. Coastal storms are most frequent. So there's a reason there. There's a basis for dealing with that issue when it comes to natural hazards. When it comes to Ohio, why focus on coastal storms? Some of you may recall, or you may have seen it on the news, Hurricane Sandy came up the East Coast in 2012 in Ohio, and I'm sure much along the East Coast we call it the Hollow Storm, Hollow Weekend Storm. It was right around Halloween, and it did come inland. So there were significant amount of damage on the East Coast in those states. But in Ohio we had several marinas. We had a lot of coastal communities that actually did have significant impacts. So real quick, I wanted to switch over, get this to work, and a gentleman brought up what I thought was a pretty hilarious take on the coastal storms and Superstorm Sandy in Ohio. So this is live video that was shot during Superstorm Sandy. Now in the East Coast states and the Gulf Coast states, they might see this frequently. This is a common ocean storm. In the Great Lakes, this is not common. We don't see these types of storms very often. And you'll see a big wave shoot up here. We actually had a major highway, I-90 through Cleveland, completely shut down for several days because of the storm surge that was coming through Cleveland. That was rather entertaining that someone took the time to do that. So that just gives you a glimpse of what Ohio experienced in terms of coastal storms and Superstorm Sandy back in 2012. We had an estimated $17 million worth of damage in the Great Lakes directly as a result of Superstorm Sandy. And then in our region in Northeast Ohio, our marinas experienced a significant amount of damage. We had one marina alone that experienced $2.7 million worth of damage directly because of Superstorm Sandy. And this was surprising. A lot of our marinas, they don't talk about hurricanes. We don't have hurricanes in the Great Lakes. So when this came through, a lot of our coastal communities and the users that I work with, our marinas, were fairly surprised by it and not as well prepared. So that's why we focus on coastal storms and marinas on this project. Why social science? This project was mostly focus groups, behavioral science. What we wanted to do is we wanted to get a better grasp on why existing tools, because again, there's hurricanes all the time, Gulf Coast states deal with hurricanes, East Coast states deal with hurricanes. There are a wealth of tools out there. Why were existing tools not utilized in this scenario? How our Great Lakes marinas currently prepare or do not prepare for these types of situations, and where our marina owners obtain their information. So we saw social science as a tool to gather this information. Our methods, we conducted a needs assessment. Originally with this project, we were going to focus just on the Cleveland area because that's where the Superstorm Sandy was hardest hit in the Great Lakes. But we were asked to expand it, so we ended up including Erie, Pennsylvania, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin in our focus groups. So we went to each of those communities, met with about 6 to 8 marina owners from those communities, and sat down for several hours talking with them about where they get their information, if they prepare for coastal hazards, in this case coastal storms, and what tools or resources could better help them prepare for these types of situations. What the goal of the project was to, again, first go to the stakeholders, first talk to them and say, okay, let's learn from you. What do you think? How did you deal with this situation? Then use their input to develop a tool to hopefully have that tool be used at a later point by these stakeholders, and then to work through this project to disseminate the tool and coastal storms education via workshops and really with Sea Grant through our extension education network. So this is just a highlight on some of the results. My contact information will be on the end. If you want more information, you're more than welcome to contact me. What was surprising, this slide is a summary slide, but what I've really pulled out is some of the key pieces that a lot of our marina owners talked about in terms of weather. They felt that a lot of our local and their local weather sources tended to overestimate. And so what happened was with Superstorm Sandy, they didn't believe the predictions that were out there. They felt that they were over-exaggerating, and so they didn't take action. So they directly stated, they said, even if we were told by the weatherman, I doubt we would have believed it because they tend to overestimate. Another interesting thing that came out is they felt that there wasn't enough science out there, or that the science isn't getting to them as to why they should prepare. So what kind of information is out there scientifically that says, hey, this is what's going to happen? So they felt that there's not enough scientific information available to convince them to prepare for coastal storms. And when we say coastal storms, when we talk with our marine owners, we included lake level changes. We did talk a little bit about climate change, coastal resiliency, those types of topics. And another common sense point, but another good point, other issues take priority in money. So a lot of our marinas we work with are mom and pop marinas. They're small businesses. They have lots of things that they're doing. They're juggling a business. And so in the laundry list of things that they're doing, taking time to actually prepare for natural hazards is very low on that list. And so other things are a higher priority. Those things come up first, and they take care of those things first. Some other results, we actually, in all the focus groups, we went through and we read off a list. I had a list of NOAA, National Weather Service, Sea Grant, Coast Guard, a whole bunch of our partners' tools that we read off the names of current tools that are out there. Maybe one out of that list of 15 to 20 tools our marine owners recognized or knew about. So what that was telling us is the tools are out there. They're fantastic tools. We all, as scientists and educators, we know they're fantastic tools, but somehow or another they're not getting to the end user, or the end user doesn't understand, or maybe they're just intimidated by it. They don't know how to use that. So we felt that was really an important thing that we learned is even what tools are already out there. Even if we didn't develop new tools, they weren't aware of existing tools. And then their sources of information, this wasn't really surprising. Word of mouth, a lot of times they just rely on each other. And then local organizations came next as far as a trust source of information from what they used for preparedness and adaptation. And then NOAA, they did mention definitely, I would say the unbiased, non-regulatory type agencies is what they relied on for information. Again, not surprising, barriers to taking steps to prepare, money, lack of centralized information. Another comment was basically there's all these things that are out there, but when I hear a storm's coming, I want to be able to go to one location, one website, one place to get all of that information. I don't have time to look up a million different websites. So that was something else that came out. And then when they mentioned types of tools, they would like to see if there was any new tools developed. They would like to see case studies. In other words, real-world examples of what's happening in their backyard and how others in the Great Lakes are either preparing, adapting, or responding to coastal hazards. They wanted multiple options. We had a whole range of marine owners, and some liked in-person workshops, some liked online webinars. So basically what that told us is, okay, well maybe we need to have an in-person workshop that has an online webinar option. We just need to find a way to diversify how we educate. And then another key point that came out was education publications for boaters. So they were saying, okay, even if you provide me and my staff with tools, I can put these plans together and I can put information out, but if the boaters don't tie down their boats correctly, that's not going to matter. So something else that we're trying to work on is basically getting easy, almost infographic type posters, easy to understand, very personable educational materials so that we can educate boaters in the Great Lakes that, hey, even though we're in the Great Lakes, we still do get these hazards, we still do need to prepare, and here's how to do that in a quick and easy format. All right, so what we developed as part of this project is called the PART, and we're basically saying we're going to tell our marine owners, do your part. It's going to be a preparation, adaptation, and response tool, specifically for Great Lakes marinas. Long story short, again, there's a wealth of resources that are already out there. All we're trying to do is make this more relevant for marine owners in the Great Lakes, so that instead of giving marine owners a hurricane preparedness plan from Florida or Texas or North Carolina, and they say, this doesn't apply to me, why would I use this? We're going to give them a plan that's been adapted based on the types of situations that marinas experience in the Great Lakes. It's specific for the Great Lakes, and then through our Clean Marinas Network and through our partnerships, work with them, kind of hold their hand and say, okay, please work on filling this out so that you can be better prepared in the future. As part of this tool that we're developing, we want it to be a very short, concise tool. We're trying to make it around 30 to 40 pages. We're still working with Seagrant on the publication of that. But we will include terminology, so the basics, so that our marine owners understand, what is it when we talk about coastal storms, adaptation. Great Lakes examples, so some of those case studies in Superstorm Sandy, so they can see, oh, this really did happen in the Great Lakes. Maybe I should consider trying to take some action about this. And then information on why they should prepare. So the economics and environmental side of things. We're looking both at the economic impact of Superstorm Sandy and also the economics of, okay, if you don't prepare, here's the results that could happen. So if you prepare and if you don't prepare. And then the breakdown of the tool, basically we're going to have a coastal storms preparation checklist. The way I set this up is I say, okay, when you work with your marine owners, your boaters, you do this now. This is what you should be filling out right now before anything happens. And then we'll have a coastal storms adaptation checklist. This is what hopefully through our partnerships, through working with our marine owners as we do, we will work on this periodically, come back to it, check up on it every year. This is more of the planning piece. This is a piece where we hopefully, using our partnerships, using our resources, we work with marine owners to implement stormwater best management practices so that they can manage flooding on site, maybe implementing floating docks instead of fixed docks so that they can deal with lake level fluctuations in the Great Lakes. So that's the piece that's going to take some work. It's going to take some pushing the envelope. This isn't just emergency preparedness. This is, hey, let's actually think ahead. Let's work to become more resilient marinas. And then the response piece. This is what would be completed after a storm event. So this would be kind of after the fact, assessing the situation. What could we have done better? What did we do well? And how can we improve the next time? Also, as part of the tool, what we're going to be including is a resources section. We're going to have a sample map that the marinas can model after as to, an emergency situation. Thank you, that they can have. Prediction tools. This is where we're going to provide them with all of those wonderful NOAA tools in one place, but we're also going to provide some background information as to how those tools can be used. Education for boaters, and then funding. As much as we can, we're trying to compile grants, any sort piece of funding that we have available that may help them better finance adaptation best practices for preparing for coastal storms. So where we're at now, we are in the process of publishing our preparation, adaptation, and response tool. It'll be published in print and online. We're working on both this piece, this basically shortened piece for marina owners, as well as educational materials for the boaters, as the marina owners request. And then the workshop, this is the piece where they said, okay, well, this is what we'd like. We'd like a workshop in person and online. So we just finalized this date with some of our partners yesterday. Thursday, August 3rd in 2017, if you could say the date, in Northeast Ohio, probably far Northeast Ohio, we're going to be having a Marina Resilience and Preparedness workshop. We'll be disseminating the tool to any marinas that are able to come in person to that workshop, and we'll also hopefully be hosting as a webinar so that marinas can tune in. It's also going to be geared towards clean marina coordinators. So any clean marina folks in the Great Lakes can tune in, they can get trained on how to use the tool, and then hopefully aid us in using this tool in their respective states with their respective marina owners. So with that, I want to thank our project team. We partnered with Dr. Eric Toman with the OSU School of Environment and Natural Resources, several of his graduate students, which were a huge help on the project, and then we partnered with Wisconsin Sea Grant and Pennsylvania Sea Grant for our focus groups. The Great Lakes Clean Marina Network has done amazing work. They're wonderful partners, so we always appreciate their help. And with that, there's Joe's and my contact information. If you need to contact us, if you'd like more information, feel free to reach out anytime. So, thanks. Thank you.
We have some time for questions if anybody has questions for Sarah. Hi.
Hey Sarah. Hi. Just a heads up for you on the floating docks, a lesson learned from us experiencing Hurricane Matthew in Florida this year.
Yeah.
On the river, a lot of the floating docks, the pilings were not tall enough, and what happened was the docks floated right on the top of the pilings and drifted downriver.
Thank you.
So, I don't know if there's a way, if you know what sort of storm surge was created during Sandy, but you might want to factor that in.
Thank you. We have some of the data on that, so that'd be awesome. Thank you, Maya. That's what we're here for.
Anybody else?
Yes.
That's pretty discouraging to hear about the distrust or discounting from the local weather people. Is that still a hurdle, do you think, or has that changed since the storm, or how do you kind of match that up better?
I would say the storm helped that in some way because it really was, it was really hyped up, and I think, at least in Cleveland, that the reality lived up to the hype. But I think that's also something that we as educators need to work on. I know the National Weather Service has a Weather Ready Nation initiative, and Sea Grant is in a lot of ways trying to partner on that. And I think that's a great way to tie into, again, it's that where we get our scientific information for predicting weather and helping to educate the public on that. So that's, I think, a role that we as educators can play in helping the public to understand. Sometimes, yes, sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but it's more important to be prepared and be overly cautious in those types of situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our last speaker for this